Hey everybody! Hey, I just got home from work. I thought I would share with you a quick video about something I'm excited about because it's something I discovered over the weekend that really helped me out. And yeah, as you know, a couple of weeks ago I bought one of those pneumatic bleeder kits that lets you bleed your brakes using your air compressor and had that auto refill thing with it. I was even proud of myself for coming up with a rig that would let me suspend that bottle so that I could continue to refill my reservoir, even though it wouldn't work the traditional way that it was designed to. But after spending nearly all day on Saturday, I failed. It didn't work for me. I think what was happening is, even though I had my air compressor set to the right settings, I think it was so powerful it was actually sucking air from around the threads of the bleeder valves into the tube. So there was never a time where I didn't have at least a little bit of air in with that fluid, and it sucked a lot of fluid. I went through two whole large canisters of brake fluid in trying to bleed my brakes on Saturday. I did the front, the back, the front again, the back again, and then the front even again, trying to see if I could just work out whatever method it was that I was doing wrong. And each time I tried a little different approach. I've never done it before. I don't know all I know is that you're not supposed to see any air bubbles in that tube. So after kind of throwing my hands up in the air going, I give up. And this was on top of the frustration that I had over replacing my master cylinder. But that's a different video for a different time. So I was venting a little bit to Jordan King, who I always kind of bug for advice and stuff. And he says, there's a better way of doing this than what you've been doing. And I said, I'm all ears, throw it at me, I want to know. And so he shared with me a couple of steps that I think that if you're old hat at this, and you have your own try and true method of bleeding your brakes, you can ignore this. But if you're new to this like me, and you're new to being your own mechanic, and you're new to bleeding brakes, this is really good advice. First step, he says, is to adjust your brakes to the point where they're touching, actually all the way up against the inside of those brake drums, to the point where you can't move your wheel. So you don't have to be contending with those springs when you're pumping. The second step would be, what I did is I took one of the bleeders with me, went over to Ace Hardware, or you can go to any hardware store probably, that sells in this clear plastic or vinyl tubing. And I found just the right size that would just barely fit over the nipple of that bleeder. And I bought a big length of that. So after you reinstalled your bleeder, you put that tubing on, and then instead of going just down into a receptacle, you take it and you go up to the same height level of your reservoir, and then you go down into a receptacle. Now I use some light stands and some PVC pipe segments to suspend that tubing in place, but you don't have to use that. You can use anything. I think next time I'm probably just going to get some magnets and attach the tubing to the magnets and just put them to the side of my car. Probably work just as good. But I happen to have the stands. I thought I would use them. So, but that being said, you just have to make it so that tube reaches the same level as your reservoir or a little higher. Because once you open up that valve, then you just let Mother Nature take its course, because what that does is it creates a pressure situation where it now wants to use by capillary action. It pulls the air and the fluid behind it out of the bleeder, and it basically you'll fill up that tube till it goes all the way to the top. And once it's there, what you do is you gently push on your brakes a couple times, kind of do a little bit of gentle pumping. You go and check where your bleeder is and see if there's any air bubbles coming out. Now after the first time, I had only just a small minuscule little bit of teeny mini bubbles that came out. So I did it again, no bubbles. I did it a third time just to make sure, no bubbles. So once you see no bubbles, then you tighten down your bleeder valve. You carefully remove that tube so that you don't get fluid all over the back of your drums, and then you go to the next wheel. I did both of my front tires simultaneously. I did both of my back ones simultaneously as well. It took about 10 minutes for the fronts to completely get up to that level. It took about 15, I think it was almost 20 minutes on this far back one for it to get all the way up to that. But the idea, again, is the same thing. You just want to make sure you don't have any air bubbles coming up, but you'll see them because there's a lot of tubing that you can look at. Once it's done, you tighten those up, and then you try pumping. And I immediately, after I had all the valves closed, it was like I got pressure in my brake pad, my brake pedal again, and I do, and it works wonderful. It's great. So I'm just passing this along to you because it worked for me, and as long as all the components are okay in your system, you don't have any holes in your hard lines, or you don't have any bad soft lines, then this system should work 100% of the time. And it doesn't require any extra person helping you. You can just completely by yourself. Yeah, it was great. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this method. I'm sure that a lot of you have already heard about this, but this is something I've never read in any of the manuals or watched in the videos. So thought I would share it with you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.